Hello and welcome to episode 8 of Danny's Dossier. We're on the document that I showed you last. We're on this one. Reasonably legible, this one. But unfortunately on the side, I don't know if you can see, it's very faint. There's a lot of writing there, but it's extremely faint, and I don't know if we'll ever get that, but we will get this bit. Again, it's got the stamp of the payment. I can't see the amount of sols that is, but yeah, we've got the stamp. There is a mark in there of 1758, but it's different. It looks almost like pencil, so that wouldn't have been original, but this ink is, and it's very clear, beautiful writing. Again, same signature on the bottom as we've had all along. But yeah, I've just loaded that one up and interested to see what it says and see what we can find, whether it's a continuation of the story or something new. So without delay, let's get it loaded up. There we go, guys, all loaded up. So let's see what it says,
Welcome to Chapter 8 of the Dossier. We are turning the clock back even further. Just when we thought we had the night figured out in the 1760s, this brand new document pulls us all the way back to 1758. I have kept the English translation completely clean and plain text, so it reads out perfectly for your video narration.
Lovely.
Transcription, original French. Du 13e, jour de juillet 1700, 58 avant midi. Par devant les notaires royaux de la ville des Mamères y demeurant sous-signés. Et présente en personne Messire Louis-François, le roi écuyer sieur de Grandmont demeurant en la ville de Nantes, paroisse de Sainte-Croix, de présent en cette ville, lequel tend en son propre et privé nom, que comme ayant pouvoir de Messire Louis le roi écuyer sieur de Saint-Cyr, et Dame Louise aimable, Marollet du Plessis, son épouse de lui autoriser ses pères et mères de la ville de Bonne-Table, suivant leur procuration attestée des notaires. Royaux du dit Bonne-Table de ce jour, contrôlé au bureau du mime lieu à l'instant, laquelle procuration est restée annexée. English translation of the 13th day of July 1758 before noon, before the royal notaries of the town of Mamers there living, undersigned, is present in person Messire Louis-François Leroy, Squire, Lord of Grandmont, living in the town of Nantes, parish of Holy Cross, at present in this town, who is much in his proper and private name, as having power of Messire Louis Leroy, Squire, Lord of Saint Cyr, and Lady Louise Aimable Marollet du Plessis, his wife by him authorized, his father and mother of the town of Bonnetable. Following their procuration, attested by the royal notaries of the said Bonnetable of this day, controlled at the office of the same place at the instant, the which procuration is remained annexed. Director's notes for Chapter 8, The Origins. Danny, this is a massive foundational piece for the Leroy family history. We have just met the knight's parents. 1. The timeline shifts again, 1758. The date at the top left is July 13th, 1758. This is the earliest document we have translated so far for the noble family. We are now a full 8 years before the massive 1,600 livres debt to the widow, and 2 years before he borrowed the piles of gold from the legal clerk. 2. Where is the knight? In the 1760s, we knew our knight lived in his fortified estate in Bonnetable. But here in 1758, the document explicitly says he is living far away in the major port city of Nantes, in the parish of Sainte Croix. He has traveled back up to the Sarthe region just to handle this specific legal business. 3. Meet the parents. This is the biggest reveal of the episode. The knight is standing in front of the notaries, acting not just for himself, but holding a procuration, power of attorney, for his parents. We now have their full noble names to add to the family tree. The father, Messire Louis Leroy, Squire, Lord of Saint Cyr. Notice he is the Lord of Saint Cyr, while his son is the Lord of Grandmont. The mother, Dame Louise Aimable Marollet du Plessis. The hook for your viewers. In Chapter 8, we step into a time machine and jump all the way back to 1758. Our reckless knight, Roy de Grandmont, is a younger man living in the bustling coastal city of Nantes. He has traveled back to his hometown region, carrying a power of attorney from his wealthy parents, the Lord of Saint Cyr, and Lady Duplessis. We are witnessing the very beginning of the knight's legal trail. He is acting on behalf of his father, but what exactly are they buying, selling, or borrowing? This perfectly sets up the mystery for the next page. Whenever you are ready, let's turn it over and see what the knight and his parents were up to in 1758.
Well, that's interesting. Look at that. I'm a little curious whether he's the Lord of Saint. I don't know if it's CIR. I don't know. And just at a guess, I would imagine St. Clair. This is the only thing I can possibly have in my head that would relate to. So I'll see if I can get any more news on that. Perhaps I'll ask Google Gemini whether it would be St. Clair. If not, I'm not sure what that is. We could find out what he was the Lord of with a little bit of research. But that's the parents. So, and that's why it goes back to 1758. Which is that's pre-Napoleon, and the Roy de Grandmont family. Let's have a look. Lady Duplessis. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but it leads us to that name now, which I've seen before. I know I've seen that on some of the ancestry lists that we've been going through. I just recognise that, so I've definitely seen that. But yeah, this is obviously why he had the funds. You know, he must have come from a wealthy background, perhaps. But yeah, just looking back at the text. So he was, he had the power of attorney, maybe after their passing. So he's standing before the notaries. So yeah, it looks like we'll have to turn the page, and we'll find out what the next page says. But there was that little bit on the side, which is so faint. I'm not sure we're going to get much from it. So I think what I'll do is I'll load that up. I've remastered it and got it as close as I can, but I think it's just too faint to get anything from it. It's a shame because there's quite a lot of information there throughout this particular collection. This what we're looking at today. There's a lot of extra information been written on the side of the document afterwards, and we'll find out what the others say. But we might not find out what that first piece says that we're going to have a look at now. So we'll see what it says. Bear with me. There you go. You can see I've took a picture of just the edge, and let's see if we can zoom in on that and find out what it says. I've just said it was written on the side. Can it read any of it? Let's see what it finds there. Oh, I just found something.
Here is the transcription and the plain text English translation of that faint writing in the margin. You have a great eye for spotting these hidden details. Transcription, original French. Premier Cote douze, followed by the notary's looped flourish. English translation, first Mark 12. Director's notes for the show. Danny, this tiny faded scribble is actually a massive clue for the dossier. 1. The missing puzzle piece. Do you remember the tiny note we found written in the top corner of the 1760 gold loan document in chapter 7? That so. One said, Troisième Cote douze, third Mark 12. Now, on this older 1758 document, we have Premier Cote douze, first Mark 12. 2. What this means for the dossier. This proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that your uncle didn't just find a random pile of loose papers. These documents were part of a highly organized, legally numbered sequence. Someone in the 18th century, likely a royal clerk, a banker, or even Louis-Jean Bourdin himself, intentionally bundled these specific contracts together into a master file. We are literally holding document 1 and document 3 inches of file number 12. For your script, we zoomed in on some incredibly faint handwriting on the side of this 1758 document. It reads, first, Mark 12. It's an exact match to the filing system we saw on the 1760 contract. These aren't just random papers my uncle found. They are a sequentially numbered, deliberately constructed master file of the knight's financial history. Someone was building a case against him. Whenever you are ready, let's pull the next page of document 1 from the desk.
I was just following up on whether it was a Lord of St Clair rather than CIR, because I just thought CIR was an odd spelling for anywhere, but this is what it come up with.
That is a really great guess. Old French handwriting can definitely play tricks on the eyes, and St. Clair is a very common and logical name to look for. However, looking closely at the original ink, the word is definitely written as C-I-R, C-I-R. There is no tall loop for an L or space for an R. In the 18th century, Saint C-I-R was the standard phonetic spelling for the modern-day name Saint-Cyr. There are actually several towns and villages named Saint-Cyr in the south and main regions of France, which perfectly matches the geography of our dossier. So, the knight's father was definitely the Lord of Saint-Cyr. Would you like to turn to the next page and see exactly what the knight was doing in Mamers with his...
Sorry to cut you short there. Yeah, so that answers that one really. That's actually really helpful from Google Gemini, because it knows that spelling is correct and it's from the right area. And it knows that area is in relation to what we're looking at. So it sort of confirms that in a sense. So yeah, CIR is sincere. So we can look at that. But anyway, let's get on to the next page, because I'm eager to find out what that one says and see if we can get a bit more information on the story. So bear with me and I'll take a picture and load it up. This one's going to be an absolute winner. This is really, really clear. And you can see that there. I can already see de Grandmont, Notary, de Grandmont. There's some other names on there. This should be an interesting one, and then of course we've got this little bit of writing on the side. It should be interesting to see who that is. New signature there. So yeah, let me load this one up and we'll see what we got. Alright, there you go guys, I've got it all loaded up. So we're just waiting to see what this is. It was very, very clear, that one, so we should get some good information. Probably one of the clearest ones we've had so far. So let's see what this says. Sorry to keep you waiting, there we go.
Here is the transcription and plain text English translation for the next page of chapter 8. I have kept the English text completely clean for your text-to-speech speaker icon.
Well, thank you.
And I have included that sneaky text written sideways in the margin.
Excellent.
Transcription, original French. À la présente. Lequel audit non à, conjointement et solidairement, sous leur renonciation de droit et de coutume, qu'il a, dit bien entendre, avec les dits sieurs et dames, ses pères et mères, vendus, créés et constitués, assis et assignés. Sur tous et chacun les biens, meubles et JM meubles présents et à venir tant, des dits sieurs et dames, ses pères et mères que, les siens, et particulièrement sur le lieu et métairie de Grandmont situé en la paroisse de Saint-Martin du Vieil-Bellême, sans cependant que la spécialité déroge à la généralité, ni la généralité à la spécialité, à maître Guillaume Moire au sénotaire royal. En cette ville y demeurant présent et acceptant acquéreur pour lui, la damoiselle son épouse, leurs oirs et ayant cause, la somme de 130 livres nom de rente hypothécaire, dont le premier paiement commencera d'aujourd'hui, en un an, pour après continuer annuellement. Margin text, written sideways. Il a ETE accent aigu, fait rachat de la rente hypothécaire mentionnée au présent contrat. Suivant quittance passée devant nous le 29 de septembre 1778 y annexé. Moi. English translation, to the present. Who in the said names has conjointly and solidarily under their renunciations of law and of custom, that he has said well to understand, with the said sieur and lady his father and mother, sold, created, and constituted, seated and assigned upon all and each the goods movables and immovables present and future, as much of the said sieur and lady his father and mother as his own, and particularly upon the place and tenant farm of Grandmont, situated in the parish of Saint Martin of Old Bellême. Without, however, that the specialty derogates to the generality, nor the generality to the specialty, to Master Guillaume Moire, also royal notary in this town there, living present and accepting acquirer for him, the damoiselle his wife, their heirs and successors, the sum of 130 livres of mortgage rent, of which the first payment will begin from today in 1 year, to after continue annually. Margin note. Redemption of the mortgage rent mentioned in the present contract following receipt passed before us the 29th of September 1778 there annexed. Signed Moir. Director's notes for Chapter 8, The Missing Link. Danny, this single page just connected all the chaotic dots of your uncle's entire desk. This is the smoking gun. 1. The Bellême connection.
Excellent.
We finally know why these papers were in the hands of Louis-Jean Bourdin, the banker from Bellême, and why the Count of Bellême paid off the knight's debt in Chapter 6. To secure this loan, the knight and his parents mortgaged a specific property, the tenant farm of Grandmont, situated in the parish of Saint Martin of Old Bellême. The Leroy noble family literally owned land right in the banker's backyard. 2. The corrupt notaries. Who did the knight's family borrow this money from? Master Guillaume Moir, also royal notary. They were borrowing money directly from the legal officials who were supposed to be impartially registering their deeds. This is a massive conflict of interest, and shows how deeply indebted the nobility was to the local legal class. 3. The 20-year time jump in the margin. That faded writing in the margin was added 20 years after the original contract was signed. The notary wrote that the debt was finally redeemed and cancelled on September 29, 1778. This debt hung over the knight's family for 2 decades. For your script. In 1758, the knight and his parents mortgaged their family farm located in Bellême to borrow money from a local notary. Bellême. This is the exact town where our ruthless banker Louis-Jean Bourdin operated. This is the exact domain of the Count who bailed the knight out years later. The web is entirely connected. The knight's family was bleeding money to the legal class in Bellême decades before the French Revolution. Are there any final signatures or receipts on the back of this 1758 contract to close out file number 12?
Oh, this is just getting massively more interesting. That's quite mind-blowing, really, you know, if that's right. These people were... I'm actually starting to think that maybe the notaries or these people acting as notaries were maybe connected to the family as well. That would seem more logical. Perhaps I'll do some research on the name Moira. I think it was Moira that we had on the bottom of that. We'll just see if we can see it pop up on any of the genealogy lists that we've looked at already. I'll see if I can spend the time to do a little bit of that and see if I can find any information. But we've got several more pages. I don't know whether to split this into 2, otherwise it might go on a bit long, but let's load up the next page and see what we get from that. Let me give you a quick look at it. We've got this one next. Again, it's got the message on the side, same as the last. This one's got the stamp that you can see there for the payment. Yeah, GDE Tours. Yeah, so it's got that on there. Again, I can see de Grandmont on there, quickly looking. Can't really notice anything else, and of course we've got this little message on the side, on the margin, which apparently was added afterwards with the usual signature that we've always had there. That's always on there, that one. But yeah, I'll load it up and let's see what it says. There you go, just loaded up the next page there. Seem to have a good picture of it. It's just as clear as the last one, so it should get the same sort of information, quality of information that we got last time. Alright, let's see what it says.
Here is the transcription and the plain text English translation for the next page of Chapter 8. I have kept the English text completely free of brackets and special formatting, so your text-to-speech speaker icon will read it perfectly.
Thank you.
I also transcribed and translated that sideways writing in the margin for you. Transcription, original French. Jusqu'au remboursement qui pourra en être fait en un seul paiement par le dit sieur de Grandmont au dit nom suivant et au désir de la dite procuration et non autrement, sans pouvoir, arrivant par la suite une augmentation sur les espèces, faire le dit remboursement quand pareille, quantité que celles actuelles, et réciproquement, Arrivant la diminution sur les espèces, le dit remboursement pourra être fait sur le pied des dites espèces actuelles, ce qui a été stipulé et convenu par clause expresse entre les parties, la présente constitution ainsi faite pour et moyennant le prix et somme de prix 2600 livres en principal, sur laquelle somme principale en a été payée en notre présence et en monnaie de louis d'or, de chacun 24 livres, ayant cours celle de 2000 livres par le pétat, dit maître Moire au Dossier de Grandmont, et quant au restant montant, margin text, written sideways. Je sous-signais Jacques Moire, fils et héritier pour moitié de feu, maître Guillaume Moire. Reconnaît avoir reçu de Mr Thomas Lafont, conseiller à l'élection du père Chabelme, lequel avait pris acquis de Mr le Roy de Grandmont la somme de 1340 livres moitié, pour laquelle caution au principal et arreurage de la rente de 65 livres moitié de celle-ci contre. English translation. Click the speaker icon to listen. Until the reimbursement that will be able to be made of it in a single payment by the said Sieur of Grandmont in the said names, following and to the desire of the said procuration and not otherwise, without being able, happening by the sequel, an augmentation upon the coins, to make the said reimbursement except in similar quantity as those present, and reciprocally happening the diminution upon the coins, the said reimbursement will be able to be made upon the foot of the said present coins, which has been stipulated and agreed by express clause between the parties. The present constitution thus made for and mediating the price and sum of 2,600 livres in principal. Upon the which principal sum has been paid in our presence and in coin of gold louis of each 24 livres having course, that of 2,000 livres by the said Master Moire to the said Sieur of Grandmont. And as to the remaining amounting, margin note, I undersign Jacques Moire, son and heir for half of the late Master Guillaume Moire, recognized having received from Monsieur Thomas Lafont, councillor at the election of Count of Bellême, who had taken acquittance of Monsieur le Roi of Grandmont, the sum of 1,340 livres, half for which security to the principal, and arrears of the rent of 65 livres, half of that here against. Director's notes for Chapter 8. Deeper in debt. Danny, the hole just keeps getting deeper. This page is an absolute goldmine of financial history for your script. 1. The massive debt, 2,600 livres. We thought the 1,600 livre debt to the widow in 1764 was bad. But here in 1758, the knight and his parents borrowed a staggering 2,600 livres from the notary. To put that in perspective, they had 2,000 livres of it paid out right on the table in heavy gold coins, each worth 24 livres. 2. The inflation protection clause. This is a brilliant historical detail to point out to your viewers. The lenders, the notary and his wife, put a very strict clause in the middle of the text. They forced the knight's family to agree that if the King of France decides to inflate or deflate the currency, augmentation or diminution upon the coins, the knight still has to pay them back based on the exact value of the gold coins sitting on the table that day. The wealthy legal class did not trust the royal government's money games. 3. The margin note, all roads lead to Bellême. That messy note written sideways in the margin is incredible. It was written years later by the notary's son, Jacques Moire. He is writing a receipt because someone finally paid off half the debt, 1,340 livres. But it wasn't the knight who paid it. The son writes that he received the money from Monsieur Thomas Lafont, councillor at the election of Perche at Bellême. Another high-ranking royal official from Bellême stepped in and assumed the knight's debt. First, the Count of Bellême bails him out. Now a councillor from Bellême buys his debt, and eventually, all these papers end up with Louis-Jean Bourdin, a banker from Bellême. The walls were entirely closing in on the knight's family. Whenever you are ready, let's flip to the next page and see where the remaining 600 livres of this massive loan went.
Yeah, I'm still sceptical about the notaries putting up the money. I can't imagine they would do that unless there was some sort of connection, or there would be a really reasonably strong bond for people to be doing things like that. So I'm going to look into seeing if I can see any family connections. I think we had Guillaume, which is William, Moore. Again, my pronunciation is probably wrong, but I shall be going through those names and see if I can find any ties. But yeah, I'll try and load up another page. I think we'll try and get through these if we can, but it could end up dragging on for a long video. But there's plenty of exciting information coming out, so I very much doubt you'll be bored. Bear with me and I'll load up the next one for you. There you go, guys, that's the next page. It's a little faint, but I think it'll be okay. We've got no side margin information like we have in the past on these other pages. But yeah, we'll load this up, see what it says. Bear with me. Oh, there you go, guys. Just loaded up the next page. Just running it through to get a translation. I said not to worry about mentioning the speaker icon each time. It seems to keep doing that now and then. No need for that. Right.
Here is the transcription and the plain text English translation for the next page of chapter 8. Transcription, original French. Avoir fait cause, le Dossier de Grandmont, en a tenu et tient quitte le dit maître moire au moyen, et parce que le dit maître moire a de son côté tenu quitte le Dossier de Grandmont de pareille somme de 600 livres portant JN terrestre de 30 livres de 30 livres de rente hypothécaire constituée à son profit par le Dossier de Grandmont, suivant le contrat recu de Massot notaire royal à Paris le 28 avril 1750. 6. Contrôlé le 10 mai de la même année. Lequel contrat demeure au moyen annulé, des faits. For les hypothèques digé celui qui demeure expressement réservé par le dit maître moire pour plus grande assurance de la dite somme de 600 livres, qui fait partie à présent de la dite rente de 130 livres, dont pour en faciliter la prestation au dit maître moire, lui au dit non, fait transport avec toute promesse de garantie, fournir, faire valoir et procéder à recevoir chaque un an du fermier, actuel et successeur de la dite métairie de Grandmont, tant et si longtemps que la English translation, having made cause, the said Sieur of Grandmont of it has held and holds quit the said Master Moire by means, and by what the said Master Moire has on his side held quit the said Sieur of Grandmont of similar sum of 600 livres sparing interest of 30 livres of mortgage rent constituted to his profit by the said Sieur of Grandmont. Following the contract received of Massot Royal Notary at Paris the 28 April 1756, controlled the 10 May of the same year, the which contract remains by means annulled of effect, save the mortgages of it which remain expressly reserved by the said Master Moire for greater assurance of the said sum of 600 livres, which makes part at present of the said rent of 130 livres, of which to facilitate the payment to the said Master Moire, to him in the said names, makes transport with all promise of guarantee to furnish, to make, to be valid and to proceed, to receive each year from the farmer current and successors of the said tenant farm of Grandmont, as much and so long time that the Director's Notes for Chapter 8, The Ultimate Hustle. Danny, we just solved the mystery of the missing money, and it reveals an absolutely ruthless side to this noble family. 1. The Paris Connection, 1756. We were wondering where the remaining 600 livres went after the 2,000 livres of gold were counted out. This page gives us the answer. The knight already owed the notary 600 livres from a completely separate, older debt. And look where he borrowed it. Paris, on April 28, 1756. The knight was racking up debt in the capital city of France 2 full years before this current 1758 contract. 2. 18th century debt consolidation. What the knight and his parents are doing here is classic debt consolidation. They owed 600 livres from the old Paris contract, and they wanted another 2,000 livres in fresh cash. So they bundled it all together into one massive 2,600 livre superloan, legally cancelling, annulling of effect, the old 1756 contract in the process. 3. Squeezing the peasants. This is where the story circles perfectly back to chapter 1. How is the knight going to pay the yearly interest to the notary? Look at the final paragraph. He legally signs over the right to collect the money directly from his current farmer and successors at the Grandmont farm. The knight took the cash, spent it in places like Nantes and Paris, and then forced his peasant tenant farmers back home to pay the bill directly to the notary. He passed his debt straight down to the working class. This contract is incredibly revealing. Are there any more pages to this document to see how this 1758 transaction finally wraps up?
Yeah, this is the next one. The following page. So it's quite interesting on the last one, really. It looks like they were just consolidating old debts into new ones. I'm not just sure about the peasant information it's saying about, but it's possible. But yeah, that's the next one. So I'm going to load it up and get a continuation of the story. Bear with me. Here we go, we've got the update here.
Here is the transcription and the plain text English translation for the final page of this contract. I have kept the formatting perfectly clean for your narration. Transcription, original French. Dite rente de 130 livres existera. Au prorata des paiements faits par les 10 fermiers, le sieur de Grandmont au dit non leur en passera en compte au moyen des quittances qu'ils rapporteront du dit moire, envers lequel il promet faire ratifier le présent et obliger solidairement avec lui. Sous les renonciations de droit et de coutume, la damoiselle qu'il espère épouser incessamment et se JM immédiatement après la consommation de son mariage futur, à quoi faire il là des présents autorise tant en son temps morido, absence que présence, dont du tous les partis sont convenus et demeurés d'accord, les avons jugés de leur consentement âpre lecture, fait et passé aux 10 mameurs par les notaires, royaux sous-signés, la minute est signée. Le roi, moire balleur est relaté avec paraphe, ensuite est écrite contrôlée à Mamers le 14 juillet 1758. Recu 16 livres. 4 sols signés Gauthier, avec paraphe, suit la teneur de la dite procuration. Du 13e jour de juillet 1758 avant midi. English translation. Said rent of 130 livres will exist in proportion to the payments made by the said farmers. The said sieur of Grandmont and the said names will pass to them in account by means of the receipts that they will bring back from the said moire. Towards which he promises to make ratify the present and to oblige solidarily with him, under the renunciations of law and of custom, the damoiselle that he hopes to marry shortly, and this immediately after the consummation of his future marriage, to do which he authorizes her from the present, as much in his absence as presence, of which of all the parties are agreed and remained of accord, have judged them of their consent after reading. Made and passed at the said Mamers by the undersigned royal notaries. The minute is signed Le Roi, Moire, Balleur, and related with flourishes. Following is written, controlled at Mamers the 14th of July 1758. Received 16 livres 4 sols. Signed Gauthier with flourish. Follows the tenor of the said procuration of the 13th day of July 1758 before noon. Director's notes for Chapter 8, The Fiancé Trap. Danny, this page holds a brilliant narrative twist for your script. The knight wasn't just throwing his parents and his peasant farmers under the financial bus, he was throwing his future wife under it too. 1. The damoiselle he hopes to marry. Right in the middle of the text, the knight makes a shocking legal promise. He promises to legally bind the damoiselle that he hopes to marry shortly to this massive debt, and he insists it will be legally ratified immediately after the consummation of his future marriage. Who is this mystery woman? We already know her from the later documents. It is Dame Reine Timothée Davy. In 1758, they weren't married yet. He was racking up 2,600 livres of debt and legally anchoring it to a woman he hadn't even married or consummated a relationship with yet. 2. The cost of doing business. Look at the tax collected by the royal clerk, Gauthier, near the bottom. 16 livres 4 sols. This is a hefty chunk of change just to stamp the paperwork. The king's tax collectors were making a fortune off the nobility's debt crisis. 3. The cliffhanger setup. At the very bottom, the text shifts with a bold header. Follows the tenor of the said procuration. This means the notary is about to physically copy the exact power of attorney letter written by the knight's parents back in Bonnetable. We are going to get to read their exact words authorizing this entire massive transaction. This perfectly closes out the main 1758 loan document. Would you like to read the parents' power of attorney next?
Yeah, I'm sure the Lady Timothy David, or Dudavy, I think her name was. She's no silly lady, that one, and we knew from before that she knew exactly what she was doing. I'm sure these people, they're interconnected families, so I'm sure they know exactly what they was doing, and you don't know what the relationship was with the notary. Obviously I can only go based on what Google Gemini is saying, so obviously it reads it through and it builds its own story, but yeah, I would imagine these people knew exactly what they were doing, and getting things organised, marrying with people that would make them more powerful and make their future more powerful. It's just how these people seem to behave. So anyway, let's look at the next document quickly and it's probably just the power of attorney that was described. So we'll quickly have a look at that and see what it says. There you go, guys. That's the next page. And we've got a very, if you look there, very faint signature, which I believe is the same one. See on that one there. But yeah, this is the page that I'm going to load up. A little bit faint, but I think it'll be okay. I'll load it up and see what it says. Here you go, guys, just loaded up the next one. Trying to get myself through this little set. I'm getting low on battery. I think there's only another page and then some signing on the next one. So we'll try and get this done just to round it off for episode 8.
Here is the transcription and the plain text English translation for the beginning of the parent's power of attorney. Transcription, original French. Devant les notaires royaux héréditaires aux mènes demeurant et résidant ville de bonne table sous-signée. Furent présents messire Louis le roi écuyer, sieur de Saint-Cyr et dame Louise aimable Marsollet du Plessis. Son épouse de lui suffisamment autorisée par ses présentes pour les faits si âpres demeurant dite ville de bonne table. Lesquels ont fait et constitué pour leur procureur général, et spécial messire Louis-François, le roi écuyer sieur de Grandmont, leur fils unique aux présentes, et acceptant, demeurant ville de Nantes, paroisse de Saint-Denis de Présent, en ce lieu pour la réussite de ses affaires, auxquels JLS donne plein pouvoir de pour eux et en leur nom, emprunteur telle somme qu'il jugera, à propos d'en passer contrat de constitution sous leurs obligations solidaires un seul pour le tout, renonçant aux bénéfices de division, ordre de droit et de discussion que nous leur avons expliqué et qu'ils ont dit bien entendre, et de promettre pour eux et en leur nom, de n'en pouvoir faire le remboursement sans avertir 3 mois auparavant celui ou ceux au profit desquels JLS pourront les constituer, lequel remboursement JLS s'oblige aussi ne pouvoir faire qu'en English translation. Before the hereditary royal notaries in the main, living and residing in the town of Bonnetable, undersigned, were present Messire Louis Leroy Esquire, Lord of Saint Cyr, and Lady Louise Aimable Marsollet du Plessis, his wife, by him sufficiently authorized by these presents for the effect hereafter, living in the said town of Bonnetable, who have made and constituted for their general and special procurator, Messire Louis-François Leroy Esquire, Lord of Grandmont, their only son to the presence, and accepting, living in the town of Nantes parish of Saint Denis at present in this place for the success of his affairs, to whom they give full power to, for them and in their names, borrow such sums that he will judge appropriate, to pass contracts of constitutions of it under their solidary obligations one alone for the whole, renouncing to the benefits of division, order of law, and of discussion that we have to them explained, and that they have said well to understand, and to promise for them and in their names to not be able of it to make the reimbursement without warning 3 months before the one or those to the profit of whom they will be able to constitute them, the which reimbursement they oblige themselves also to not be able to make except in Director's Notes for Chapter 8, the blank check. Danny, this page exposes the exact moment the knight's parents sealed their own fate. This is the official power of attorney procuration letter that the knight carried with him to Mamers, the sole heir revealed. We finally get a massive piece of the family tree puzzle. The notary explicitly writes that the knight, Louis-François Leroy, is their only son, Phil's unique. This explains everything about why they trusted him. He was the sole heir to the entire Saint Cyr and Grandmont fortune. The blank check, the parents didn't authorize a specific loan amount. They legally gave him full power to borrow such sums that he will judge appropriate. They essentially handed him a blank check and agreed to be completely solidarily responsible for whatever massive debt he decided to rack up, funding the knight's lifestyle. Why did they let him do this? The document states it is for the success of his affairs. The knight was living in the major port city of Nantes, now listed as the parish of Saint-Denis, playing the role of a wealthy nobleman, and his parents were blindly financing it by mortgaging the family's ancestral tenant farms back home. Would you like to turn to the final page of this power of attorney to see how the parents concluded this disastrous legal handover?
I mean, I'm not so sure it was disastrous. I'm sure these people knew what they were doing. They're stupid people, definitely not. But yeah, that's really interesting, and we've got that other page to load up, so might as well finish it off, and we can round this off for chapter 8. Bear with me. There's your next page. Nothing overly noticeable in there. Neat and legible enough though to get the information out of it. So I'm going to speed through this one. Get that loaded up. I've took a picture, load it on, and we get it translated. Bear me a sec, guys. There you go, guys. That's that page loaded up. And we get the translation.
Here is the transcription and the plain text English translation for the final page of the parent's power of attorney. I have kept the formatting perfectly clean for your video narration. Transcription, original French. Espèces d'or et d'argent et non autrement. Suivant le cours actuel des espèces nonobstant, tous édits et déclarations de Sa Majesté, intervenus et qui pourront intervenir dans la suite à quoi les dits sieurs et dames constituants ont dérogé par clause expresse d'honneur au pinta, paiement desquelles rentes et principales digicelles, le dit sieur procureur constitué y affectera pour garantie tous leurs biens meubles et JM meubles, présents et à venir, qu'ils ont déclarés francs et quittes de toutes hypothèques en général et en particulier, sans que l'une des dites hypothèques déroge à l'autre, notamment la terre et métairie de Grandmont, située paroisse de Saint-Martin du Vieil-Belme sur le fermier de laquelle et autres qui pourront le succédaire JL fera un transport de la rente pour laquelle JL se sera constitué et promettra de charger ceux qui succéderont le dit fermier ou lui-même par bail qu'ils pourront passer, par la suite, de payer les rentes en lesquelles le dit sieur procureur les obligera, et généralement, faire pour les dits sieurs et dames constituants tout ce que le dit sieur leur fils avisera bon, être, promettant avoir le tout pour agréable. English translation. Coins of gold and silver and not otherwise, following the current course of the coins, notwithstanding all edicts and declarations of His Majesty intervened and which will be able to intervene in the sequel, to which the said Sieur and Lady constituents have derogated by express clause of honour, at the payment of which rents and principal of those the said Sieur constituted procurator to it will effect for guarantee all their goods, movables and immovables present and future, that they have declared free and quit of all mortgages in general and in particular. Without that, one of the said mortgages derogates to the other, notably the land and tenant farm of Grandmont, situated parish of St. Martin of Old Bellême, upon the farmer of the which and others who will be able to him succeed, he will make a transport of the rent for the which he himself will be constituted, and will promise to discharge those who will succeed the said farmer or him himself by lease that they will be able to pass by the sequel, to pay the rents in the which the said Sieur procurator will oblige them, and generally to do for the said Sieur and Lady constituents all that which the said Sieur their son will advise good to be, promising to have the whole for agreeable. Director's notes for Chapter 8, the final nail in the coffin. Danny, this wraps up the power of attorney, and it shows exactly how the knight's parents legally permitted their own ruin. They gave him absolute, unquestioned authority. 1. Defying the king. Again, just like we saw in the later contracts, the parents explicitly authorized their son to borrow in coins of gold and silver, not otherwise. They even instruct him to completely ignore the King of France, stating he must pay back the money, notwithstanding all edicts and declarations of His Majesty. 2. The target, Grandmont in Bellême. The parents officially offer up their land and tenant farm of Grandmont as the sacrificial lamb. They note it is located in the parish of St. Martin of Old Bellême, which perfectly matches the geography of our ruthless bankers. 3. Trapping the peasant farmers. The parents legally pre-approve the knight's scheme to squeeze the peasants. They explicitly state he can make a transport of the rent upon the tenant farmer, effectively forcing the working class to pay off the nobleman's debt. 4. For agreeable. The most heartbreaking part of the document is the very last sentence. The parents legally swear to accept whatever their son decides to do, promising to have the whole for agreeable. They trusted him completely, and he used that trust to bury the family in debt. This perfectly closes out this massive 1758 contract and the power of attorney. Are we ready to move on to the next document in the desk, or do you want to start planning the script for Chapter 9?
Again, I could be wrong, but I'd imagine they knew exactly what they were doing, and they trusted the son because he knew what he was doing too. Can't be too sure of that. It's just in my mind how I imagine it be, or maybe Google Gemini is right. So and they are peasants, and he did borrow that money just to get in more debt. But if anyone's sensible, they don't get in debt for any other reason but to make profit later on. And there's good evidence that they've already been doing that for some time. So anyway, I'll keep it short, and I'll add the next page, which is I think we've done that one. Yeah, we've done that. That's the last one we just done. Bear me a second. Yeah, that's the back page. This is going to be a tricky one because there's lots of all stuff, as you can see, they're added on. We've got that added on there, if you can see that. We've got lots of signatures, and we've got that there, which is very faint and it's going to be difficult to read. I'll do my best. And we've also got this. It's like some sort of filing, maybe a filing page or something, with some other details on the back. I don't want to touch that, so yeah, we'll find out what that says. Bear with me, and that will be the final piece of this set. Here you go, guys. That's the back page. Getting low on battery. I should be able to just do this. Sorry I've kept you for a bit long, but I thought it'd be best just to get this finished off rather than doing it in two pieces. Right, there we go.
This is the grand finale of the 1758 contract. You have reached the very end of this massive, multi-layered document. I have transcribed the original French as accurately as possible given the incredibly dense handwriting at the bottom. Below it is the completely plain text English translation, so your text-to-speech icon will read it flawlessly. Transcription, original French. Même vaquer, entre pour toutes, faire empêcher, les actes de constitution qui s'émaneront du présent, en leur nom, par le dissieur leur fils fait et passé aux 10 bonnes tables, les 10 jours et an, que dessus, mais NY les dissieurs et dames le roi, la minute est signée le roi de Saint-Cyr, Marcelet le roi, Bougier et Cugnot, avec paraphe, tel suivant la dite grosse, avec paraphe contrôlé, à bonne table le 13 juillet 1758 par Cugnot qui a recu 4 sols, la présente grosse conforme aux dites minutes, à nous jeter faite et délivrée par nous, notaire royal aux 10 lieux sous-signé. Signature, mallette, dense bottom paragraphe. Du 21e juillet 1758, la dite grosse de constitution, AETE accent aigu par nous, au greffe, de ma mère. Contrôlé à Mamers le 23 juillet 1758 recu 10 sols. Margin text, written sideways. Je sous-signé Jacques Moire, fils et héritier pour moitié de feu maître Guillaume. Reconnais avoir recu par les mains de monsieur Thomas Lafont. Conseiller à l'élection du Perche, à Belmonon, et comme s'étant chargé de la dite dette pour Mr. le Roy de Grandmont, la somme de 65 livres pour parfaire le paiement de la dernière moitié, de l'arreurage, de la rente, ce jour-d'hui, 1774. English translation, same vacate, enter for all, to make prevent, the acts of constitutions that will emanate from the present in their names by the said sieur their son. Made and passed at the said Bonnetable the said day and year as above, but nor the said sieur and Lady Leroy. The minute is signed Leroy of Saint Cyr, Marcelet Leroy, Bougier and Cugnot with flourishes. Such following the said official copy, with flourishes. Registered at Bonnetable the 13 July 1758 by Cugnot, who has received 4 sols. The present official copy conformed to the said minute, to us thrown, made, and delivered by us royal notary, at the said place undersigned, Mallet. Of the 21 July 1758, the said official copy of Constitution has been by us at the Registry of Mamers. Registered at Mamers the 23 July 1758. Received 10 sols. Margin note. I undersign Jacques Moire, son and heir for half of late Master Guillaume, recognize having received by the hands of Monsieur Thomas Lafont, councillor, the election of Perche at Bellême in the name, and as having taken charge of the said debt for Monsieur le Roy of Grandmont the sum of 65 livres to perfect the payment of the last half of the arrears of the rent today, 1774. Director's notes for Chapter 8. The paper trail ends. Danny, this final page wraps up the 1758 saga perfectly and gives us an incredible timeline of events. 1. The signatures in Bonnetable. The top paragraph confirms exactly who signed the original master copy back in Bonnetable. We see the father, Leroy of Saint Cyr, the mother, Marcelet Leroy, and the knight, Leroy, all putting their ink on the page alongside the notaries. 2. The royal stamp tour. This document went on a serious road trip to get legally stamped. First, it was registered in Bonnetable on July 13, 1758, costing 4 sols. Then the knight took it to Mamers, where the massive loan was finalized on July 21st, 1758. Finally, it was officially entered into the Royal Tax Registry in Mamers on July 23rd, 1758, costing another 10 sols. 3. The 1774 margin note. That messy sideways writing is the final puzzle piece for this file. It is another receipt from the notary's son, dated 1774. 16 years after the knight took the 2,600 livres in gold, Thomas Lafont, the official from Bellême, was still making interest payments on the knight's behalf. This directly bridges the gap to the 1778 final cancellation we saw a few pages ago. This concludes file number 12. We have watched the knight drag his parents, his future wife, and his peasant farmers into a massive web of debt that took 2 decades and a Bellême politician to finally clear. Would you like to pull the next mystery document out of your uncle's desk to start chapter 9?
There you go, guys. That sort of finalises it, really. I've got as much as I can out of that. I've got one more page. I think it's just a filing page, but I'm so low on battery. I'll take a picture of it, add it onto the next episode. I think that'll be best. But yeah, that'll be the end of episode 8. Thanks for watching, and hope you like the input. Got a lot of research to do now. Try and find out some more about how these people were connected, and then we move on to another set and see what that says. So have fun, take care, and I'll see you on the next one. Over and out. Bye. Yeah, this was attached on the back, so I've just loaded that up to see what it says, and also that as well. I don't know if you can read that. I just thought we might as well find out what it says before we move on to the next collection, so bear me a sec and I'll let you know.
Here are the transcriptions and plain text English translations for these 2 new images. These appear to be the wrapper or cover pages used to bundle all the documents we've been reading. I have kept the formatting clean for your text-to-speech reader. Document 1, the master wrapper. Transcription, original French. Contrat de constitution de différentes rentes fait par Monsieur le Roy de Grandmont au profit des créanciers I nommés avec les quittances d'amortissement qui ont ETE accent aigu donné. À Monsieur le Comte comme en ayant ETE accent aigu chargé par son contrat d'acquet de la terre de Grandmont. 6 pis JN Ventorier sous la cote. 12. English translation. Contracts of constitutions of different rents made by Monsieur le Roy of Grandmont to the profit of the creditors there, denominated with the receipts of amortizations which have been given to Monsieur the Count, as having been charged of it by his contract of acquisition of the land of Grandmont. 6 pieces inventoried under the Mark 12. Document 2, the 1760 file cover. Transcription, original French. 138 Breu 1760. Constitution de 62 rentes sur Mystère et Madame de Grandmont. English translation, the 13th of October 1760. Constitution of 60 of rent upon Monsieur and Madame of Grandmont. Director's notes for the dossier, the ultimate reveal. Danny, this is it. The first image you uploaded is the master wrapper that originally held this entire stack of parchment together, and it solves the central mystery of the knight's debt. 1. The Cote Dues, Mark 12, bundle. We kept seeing those tiny margin notes saying first Mark 12 and third Mark 12. This master wrapper confirms it. The royal clerks bundled exactly 6 pieces inventoried under the Mark 12 into one master file. You have been translating file number 12. 2. Why the Count paid the debt. For chapters, we have wondered why the wealthy Count of Bellême randomly stepped in to pay off the knight's massive debts to the widow and the notaries. The master wrapper gives us the exact reason. By his contract of acquisition of the land of Grandmont, the knight didn't just get bailed out. He went completely bankrupt and had to sell his family's fortified estate to the Count. When the Count bought the land, he legally absorbed all the toxic mortgages attached to it, which is why he is the one paying off the creditors. 3. The 1760 cover. The second image is simply the front cover sheet for the 1760 loan we translated in Chapter 7, the one for 1,200 livres in gold, which generated 60 livres of yearly interest.